Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today we're revisiting some of our preseason predictions of where certain teams would finish and who would win awards at the end of the season. And we're also going to be talking other news and notes around the NHL. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Make sure you hit up our website down below, i80sports.com, where not only are you going to find the rest of our NHL content, but you're also going to find our NFL content, our MLS content, college football, and other sports from around the world. You got to make sure you hit it up. And while you're there, check out the shop. There's plenty of t-shirts, hats, leggings, all that kind of fun stuff. So make sure you hit up our shop as well while you're there. And make sure you follow us on Twitter if you're not doing so already at I80_sports NHL. We're pretty active on Twitter nowadays. The road to 1,000 is still on, like we have said before, and we're slowly climbing back up. But we want to reach 1,000 sooner rather than later, and it only happens with you guys. And thank you for those who have already followed. And while you're here on YouTube, make sure that you like and you drop a comment to say hello down below and join the conversation with us. And if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. That always helps us out. But as per usual, I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing better than last week, at least a little bit better.
Oh, yeah. No, things couldn't have gotten worse for you last week, buddy. That's for sure. It could not have been worse if we tried. But hopefully some better news this week. We're going to start off with some NHL news before we dive into our preseason predictions that we're revisiting today, because that's the focus of this episode. We're going to be looking back at some things that we got right and some things that we got really, really wrong in our preseason predictions from earlier this year. If you want to check those out, those are videos from December and January, and I'll let you guys find them on your own. If you're really curious about watching those, go back and follow those. But we're going to start off with some NHL news, and we had some rather bigger news. We've already had some, coaches that are going to be moving on and moving out of their current cities, and those head coaches currently are Columbus Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella, who has announced that he will not return. It's a mutual parting of ways. And over the weekend, we also had Arizona Coyotes former head coach now, Rick Tocchet, mutually parting ways. And that was effective immediately after the announcement. So they had already begun a search for a new head coach. But interesting two names that are being floated out there. Both had quite the longevity with their previous teams. John Tortorella is a polarizing figure just simply because of how he holds himself, how he holds his team accountable. As we've seen in the past from the Rangers, from the Columbus Blue Jackets, from his tenures in both of those places. At 63 years old, what's next for John Tortorella? Where do you think he ends up after this, Tom?
I'm not 100% sure. I know that ESPN and Turner are still looking for analysts in their studios, and he may very well want to do TV. He may very well be tired of the coaching gig. A lot of my fellow Ranger fans are speculating that he's going to go back there, but I'm going to tell you no for two reasons. One, Elliot Friedman posted today that while they are a little bit interested in him, he's far from the top of the list for coaches the Rangers are looking for. And from the overall gist of things, it looks like Chris Drury's going to keep David Quinn around, but on a short leash. And another thing I just want to bring up, I don't want to make this a totally Rangers-related thing, but him and Chris Drury never got along when Drury was playing for him either. They never saw eye to eye. So I don't think he's coming to New York. Could Buffalo be a destination? Yes. Could Seattle be a destination? Very, very well could be. So, I mean, there's a few things that could happen with him here. I just think that they grew tired of him in Columbus. And a lot of times with Tortorella is when there's a coach like that and of his caliber and of his, MO, a lot of times his message kind of dissipates over the years. It happened in New York, it happened in Tampa, and now it's happened in Columbus. So I'm really not 100% sure where he may go. I think Buffalo might be a good landing spot for him, though, to get a new message across for a team that's having problems.
I think Buffalo could be a really, really good spot for him to land. I think if you bring in John Tortorella, you kind of relegate yourself to the fact that you are going to fully commit to this rebuild, which means that, especially based on Jack Eichel's statements today, meaning Monday, saying that he's going to do the best that he can no matter where he is next year, kind of alluding to the fact that he might be on his way out of Buffalo. Maybe this is the perfect time for a person like John Tortorella to come in, change the culture, and maybe see if he can take Buffalo to places where they haven't been in a very, very long time.
He also got his start in Buffalo, actually. That's where he had his first pro coaching jobs with the Rochester Americans. So his start in professional hockey was in Buffalo.
That's true. And he is relatively familiar with the New York area in general. So it would be a good return for him there as well. Sticking with the East Coast as he has been on for over the past decade now. Other interesting names being floated out there now. So Rick Tocchet is now officially back on the coaching hunt. We'll see if he stays, in the head coaching position in the NHL. It'll be interesting to see where he moves. Two other interesting names that are going to be out there for the offseason, though, that people should keep in mind and keep their eyes on is Gerard Gallant, who, when we last saw him, was coaching the Vegas Golden Knights, and he was the inaugural coach of the Vegas Golden Knights. Previously, he had also coached the Florida Panthers. So he's a name to look out for this summer as well. And another polarizing figure like John Tortorella, Mike Babcock, who we last saw as the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So those are four names, meaning Tortorella, Rick Tocchet, Mike Babcock, and Gerard Gallant, all coaches with very, esteemed pedigrees that are going to be floating out there this summer, something that we're going to be tracking as the summer progresses. But we're going to move on from here now. And it seems like the NHL is going to be easing on their COVID protocols if teams reach 85% vaccination, which is great to hear. With that kind of roping in things, with those protocols being in place, it seems like the Canadian division is considering having limited fans in the stadiums for the playoffs. Tom, what do you think of both of these pieces of news?
I think it's both. I think they're both great news on both of them. I'm sorry, I'm jumbling my words today. I do feel like with this 85% vaccination rate, what I don't understand is how are they not there already, most of these organizations? That's also what I don't know. But yeah, it's a great thing. In the playoffs, you need camaraderie. You want your teams to be close. You're going into battle now. You're going into war in these playoffs, and that's what you need. That's what you need. So that's one thing. Considering limited fans for the playoffs is also another great thing. Especially the Toronto Maple Leafs this year is maybe one of the Stanley Cup favorites, not the favorite. I don't think we have a Stanley Cup favorite, but I think they're one of the favorites. And it would just be a shame if they were to win a cup, them winning it in some random neutral area, them winning it in front of no fans. Because I'm thinking if they're considering limited fans for the playoffs and this 85% vaccination rate, these two factors combined, I think, come semifinals and cup finals time, will allow Canadian teams to travel over the border back and forth. And I just read the other day that Germany, a country that's been really locked down, is actually going to start allowing fans back into their soccer stadiums again. Not this weekend, but the following weekend. So I think around the world, these COVID restrictions are slowly starting to get lifted. So I feel like it's a great thing, especially should a Canadian team like the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Edmonton Oilers make it into the Stanley Cup Finals. You got to have fans in the building, even if you can't have full capacity, just to have somebody there. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying, and I think our Canadian friends have been itching to finally go to a hockey game again. They've been seeing as people in the United States have been able to go to hockey games in limited capacity, and Canadian fans are still sitting at home waiting for their opportunity to go cheer on their favorite team. And sooner rather than later, in a lot of ways, you got to make sure things are safe first. And it's better to be safe than sorry in these cases. But sooner rather than later, and it would be great to see for the playoffs, especially with the electricity that is the NHL playoffs. Moving on to one quick note before our final piece of news. Connor McDavid over the weekend notched his 100th point in 53 games played. This is, numbers that we have not seen in a very long time. And when I say a very long time, I'm not talking about just like Gretzky and Lemieux. I'm not talking 80s and 90s. It's been a while since Sidney Crosby has put up numbers like these as well. Sidney Crosby was the last person in my memory who was putting up numbers like Connor McDavid in this regard. But man, Connor McDavid has had quite a special season. Would you not agree, Tom?
Oh, agree wholeheartedly, without a doubt. And, I've doubted McDavid on here before, and I've just said, I don't know if he's as good as these other guys, but you know what? McDavid has proven, far and away that right now he is the best hockey player in the world, no questions asked. I remember I said before the season that maybe Austin Matthews or Nathan McKinnon would give him a run for his money, but I mean, and even Draisaitl would give him a run for his money last year, his own teammate. But man, far and away right now, there's nobody better than this guy. I watched that game Saturday night. He had a hand in everything. He's got size, he's got speed, he's got everything. It's kind of like, in a way, what everyone thought maybe Eric Lindros would have been all those years ago is what Connor McDavid is right now.
Yeah, he's been so impressive. 100 points, 53 games. He has over 60 assists this season. It's astounding, with over 30 goals to boot as well. He has had a special season, and it would have been interesting to see what point total he would have reached in a full 82-game season if given the opportunity to.
I did the calculations on it. It would have been roughly around 150 points. That would have been the most since Mario Lemieux in 95, 96. It would have been ballpark 150 points, which is more than we've seen in a long, long time. The next closest to that was Joe Thornton back in 05, 06. So to put it in perspective, Crosby, Ovechkin, Malkin, none of those guys even came close to this.
Yeah, not in terms of the point total. Certainly in terms of the production point per game, that's a different discussion altogether. But at the same time, in terms of point totals, we haven't seen this in a very, very, very long time. The person that I remember, as recently in terms of point totals was Nikita Kucherov, and he finished off with like 126. So not in the same league, but like still in the ballpark for sure. Lastly, owners are discussing the scheduling for next year, as stated from Elliot Friedman. Tom, why don't you give us a rundown on what owners are considering right now?
I mean, the other one's just going to be limited changes. It's with another team coming in, you'll still see every team home and away. You'll see 3 games with your teams from the other division that are in the same conference. And then basically what you will see is you'll see 4 games against 5 of your 7 divisional opponents and 3 games against the remaining. That's their desire to keep an 82-game schedule. They're considering doing another option, and it's one that I've hemmed and hawed about on here numerous times. It would be a strictly divisional playoff schedule, which means they would scrap the East, they would scrap the West. It would be 4 independent divisions or conferences. I don't know where they're going to go with that. But basically, the schedule would be you'd still see everybody in the league twice. And then basically after that, because that would give you 62 games, and then you'd have 20 games left against the 7 other teams in your division. So you'd pretty much see everybody else in the league twice, and then you'd see the teams in your division another 2 times, and then that would leave 6 spots open. And I don't know how they would want to do. Would they want to maybe regionalize the divisions? Would they want to do like kind of like what they used to do with East and the West, where you have a rotating opponents every year? Or do they want to just do they want to promote rivalries, like the Rangers and the Islanders will play against each other a little bit more, and the Habs and the Leafs or the Habs and the Bruins, just to name a few. But what I like with this one is you'll have the strictly divisional playoffs like we're going to have this year, and then you'll have your 4 playoff division winners playing semifinals and then a cup final. Like I said, the only qualm with it is that if you really go look back into the 80s when it was strictly divisional playoffs, you had teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs in the North Division making the playoffs with 53 points, and then you'd have, say, I don't know, for argument's sake, say the Washington Capitals in the Patrick Division would finish with 79 points and not make the playoffs. So that's something they may have to explore. I also did hear something about them with the travel now and with every team having their own private jets and all that, is maybe going back to doing a 1 versus 16 like they did in 1980 and 1981, just ranking the teams 1 through 16 and just having a playoff like that. And I always thought that was good too, but the only thing they had going for them back then was they had a balanced schedule. Right now you don't have that because you just can't do it. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with this.
Yeah, it'll definitely be something to monitor over the course of the next coming months, because this will be something that's going to be decided on probably well before the NHL draft, maybe roughly around Stanley Cup time, maybe right after the Stanley Cup wraps up, is they'll probably figure out the scheduling for next year. But if I had to kind of speculate right now, I think we're going to be going back to as close to the status quo as we were before, meaning having those wild card teams again, and top 4 in each division coming out. So, or sorry, top 3 in each division coming out. and
Well,
then
actually,
those 2 wild card spots.
they were considering one more thing too. They were considering maybe only having, and I read somewhere else too, only having the top 2 in each division as your guaranteed slots, and then having more wild card slots. They were considering maybe doing that as well. So we got to see. We got to see what happens. It's right now. It's very open ended.
It could be a fun possibility, but we're going to keep our ears open for it so that way we can give you even more details when that rolls along. Now, it's finally time to get settled with our preseason predictions. Let's revisit these and see how right, how wrong, how very wrong we were on some of these. So this is based on videos that Tom and I did back in December of 2020 and January of 2021. We say both of those months because unfortunately we did Eastern Conference and Western Conference predictions. And that all had to go out the window because of the new division realignment. So then we had some new predictions for that. And then we did award predictions. So we're going to be revisiting, playoff teams first. Then we're going to be going over player award predictions. And then we're going to be going over our bold predictions, which that one's going to be one that I'm going to be really, really excited for because that one I kind of hit the nail on the head on one of those. So I'm really excited for that one. So let's revisit this. So we're going to go with Tom's prediction first from who's going to make the playoffs. So based on Tom's predictions from the preseason, Tom had predicted for the Canadian division, Toronto, Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary in that order for playoff teams. So he was 2 for 4 there with Toronto and Edmonton making it. In the Western division, Tom also predicted Colorado, Vegas, San Jose, and St. Louis. 3 for 4. Got to give you props on that St. Louis call on that one. I really got to give you props there. Central division, you had Tampa Bay, Carolina, Dallas, and Nashville. So 3 for 4 again. You're kind of on fire with these so far. And
the next one.
Yeah, and then Eastern Division, a little bit rough, and it was rough for me too. Washington, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and the Rangers. So 2 for 4 there. Your best prediction was probably, Washington finishing near the top of the Eastern Division, and Nashville also making the playoffs in the Central. And yeah, I didn't guess that at all. I didn't think Nashville was actually going to get there. Some things on the outside of things, Buffalo and New York making the playoffs in the East, and San Jose making the playoffs in the West. So, Tom, do you want to reflect on your predictions?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Washington was one of those teams that I do feel like that this year or next year may be their last goal thing. So I just I said with the East, I just figured let me go with what's safe, and Washington was the safe team, and it's looking. They may not finish in first the way things are going. It depends on what happens with their last game and what happens with the tiebreakers with Pittsburgh. I just figured Nashville, they've been a solid playoff team, and well, here they are again. They're in it. I don't think they're going to go too far, but they're in it. Buffalo, what can I say? I'll get more into them later on. Rangers, well, I'm a Ranger fan, and I just felt like there was a lot of distractions with them this year. That had those distractions not occurred, had they not had those blown games in the beginning of the season, had that stuff with Panarin never happened, had Kakko and Mika Zibanejad not been stricken with COVID, and had Igor never hurt himself against the Devils, I might be sitting here right now thinking, speculating who they're going to play in the first round and how long the series is going to go. Stranger things have happened. It is what it is. I'm not upset about that. San Jose, it is what it is. And, I thought that they still had a lot of those veterans there from 2 years ago and from their cup run back in 2016. And I just figured, maybe this team can, can build on that. Can be that team that jumps ahead that nobody expected to jump ahead. It did happen in that division, but it just wasn't San Jose. The Minnesota Wild turned out to be that team. And I always say this every year going into the season, and and no one can ever predict it. Every year you're going to have one team that everybody expects to do stuff and doesn't do anything, and one team that nobody expects to do anything and surprises the hell out of everybody. And that was the Minnesota Wild this year.
We're gonna get to that prediction soon from me because I actually thought the opposite and got that one right. But that being said, there was a lot of things that I got embarrassingly wrong. We'll get there though. In terms of my predictions of how things wrapped up in the divisions, my preseason predictions were as such. In the Canadian division, I predicted Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg. So I was 2 for 4. I had Winnipeg making the playoffs, so I'm actually kind of happy that I included them there. I did have faith in them. Western Division, I predicted Vegas, Colorado, Anaheim, and Minnesota. So I was 3 for 4 there, adding in Minnesota there. But I'm going to go back to the Anaheim thing in a bit. The Central Division, I had Tampa Bay, Carolina, Dallas, and Columbus. So even more ouch on that one. So 2 for 4 there. And the Eastern Division, this is the coup de grace of bad. Philadelphia, Washington, Buffalo, and Boston. So 2 for 4 because I had Washington and Boston. Probably my best predictions were Minnesota making the playoffs in the East. I'm going to get back to the Minnesota. I'm not going to go there just yet because I'm going to save that for my bold predictions. And there's a lot to unpack there. I was really, really right on believing in Minnesota right from the get-go. And then Vegas finishing first in the West. I am thoroughly on that Vegas train, as you guys know at this point. I think Vegas has one of the strongest teams in the entire NHL at the moment. And I think that in a lot of ways, this is their Stanley Cup to lose at the moment, given how deep they are at every position at the moment. Some ouch predictions. Philadelphia even making the playoffs, let alone finishing number 1 on my prediction. What a collapse by Philadelphia this year. How awful was Philadelphia this year, and disappointing to so many people. You had so many analysts that had predicted Philadelphia to be favorites for the Stanley Cup, and just couldn't happen. Columbus also making the playoffs. I think if you don't have the Tortorella distractions and the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation that ended up happening, and Patrick Laine coming in and completely underperforming as I knew he would, I think Columbus ends up finishing a lot better. Honestly, I think Seth Jones also took a step back this year and didn't play to his top ability. But that's something that we'll unpack later on. And then lastly, Anaheim making the playoffs. I just threw that one in there because I thought that they were just farther along at this point. I thought that, adding in Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale was going to do a little bit more to give them a little bit of youth and, rejuvenation. I thought John Gibson was really going to have a big bounce back year, which in the early going in the first 15 games, he did. He looked fantastic. He was one of the best goaltenders in the entire NHL in the first 15 games, and he just could not keep it up. This was a team that just could not, beat the rest of their division in the West. And the West was a tough division this year. Just a really, really brutal division this year. So Anaheim can get it next year. They still got some time to develop and get it again next year. Now we're going to be moving into our award predictions from this past year. So we're going to go trophy by trophy with this one based on who our predictions were. We'll start with the Calder Trophy here. So Tom's prediction for the Calder Trophy was goaltender Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers. And my prediction looks like probably the only prediction that I might get right, which is forward Kirill Kaprizov of the Minnesota Wild. So, Tom, I can't be mad at your pick here for Igor Shesterkin. I actually did think that he was going to have a strong year. Based on your reflection, are you still happy with that pick? Like, would you go back and would you change that after the fact?
I don't think I would. I still think he had himself a decent year. I just didn't expect Kirill Kaprizov to just come out firing like he did. You know what I'm saying? I figured, Igor, what we saw out of him last year was kind of a safe bet, and he didn't have a bad year. But that injury and just terrible play in the first couple of weeks by the Rangers really derailed that. But Igor himself did not have a bad year.
Yeah, Igor had a relatively good year. My guess was Kirill Kaprizov, and I believe very, very highly in his ability coming in. I had watched him in the KHL. I thought he stood out very much so. When he was coming into the league, he reminded me a lot of Artemi Panarin in terms of like those parallels between, players coming into the league as a rookie from the KHL, and it paid off. I mean, he is at the moment the consensus pick for the Calder Trophy. One note I do want to mention is another person that I highlighted as a possibility for the Calder was Igor Sharangovich, and it looks like he might finish in the top 5 in voting for the Calder this year, just based on his numbers and totals. If I had to kind of guess how it's going to break down, Kaprizov is going to be the consensus pick for the Calder Trophy, with Justin Robertson probably finishing right behind him. If Kaprizov doesn't have the season that he has, it's Justin Robertson's trophy to lose out in Dallas. That's completely his trophy at that point. Moving on to the next trophy, we have the Lady Byng trophy, which also, one thing I wanted to mention, if you want to know the descriptions of all these trophies, we do mention them in our award prediction show. So if you want to go back to that video in January, go ahead, look back, because we describe what each trophy is there. So the Lady Byng trophy. So Tom had predicted Austin Matthews for the Lady Byng, and I had actually predicted Johnny Gaudreau, which in retrospect, I probably would amend. He didn't have a bad year, but he didn't have a really, really good year. Meanwhile, Tom, it looks like you hit right on the money with Austin Matthews for the Lady Byng. What do you think?
What can I say? He's also having himself a fairly good year in other respects as well. So, yeah, I think I hit that one right on the head. Nothing. Don't have anything more to say about it.
Yeah, just flat out fantastic year. Now, the next trophy that we have is a little bit tougher to peg. It's the Selke trophy. And for the Selk, Tom, you had predicted Anthony Cirelli, and I had predicted Sean Couturier of the Philadelphia Flyers. And I would not be surprised if Patrice Bergeron of the Boston Bruins ends up winning this trophy again. They might as well rename this trophy to the Patrice Bergeron trophy with how many times he has won the Selk. But I don't know. That's a tough trophy always to peg in terms of like the best defensive forward in the league, and to be able to predict that like right from the get-go. That being said, do you feel like you would want to change that Anthony Cirelli pick after the fact? You still happy with that pick?
You know what? I might want to change it over to Bergeron. I really didn't think the Bruins were going to be as good as they were this year. They're a lot better than I thought they were going to be. They're in the conversation as a contender this year. They've been very good. And Bergeron, you know, a lot of times when a longtime captain leaves a team and the C is handed over to somebody else, a lot of times they struggle in the limelight and struggle with now being the captain. You know, Bergeron took that C and ran with it. And the way the Bruins are playing right now, yeah, I would probably switch it to Bergeron. I really do think so.
Yeah, it's tough for me because I feel like if the Flyers don't have the down year that they have, I think Sean Couturier is in that conversation for the Selk. But yeah, you're right. With the year that Boston had, I mean, we both did not think that Boston was going to have the year that they had. That, and if you had told me 10 years ago that Taylor Hall was going to end up in a Boston Bruins uniform after being, you know, drafted number 1 by Edmonton, and then the next pick was, you know, Boston's to take Tyler Seguin. If you had told me that Taylor Hall was going to be in the Boston Bruins uniform this year, I don't know if I would have believed it at that point. So certainly, you know, interesting. And I think Patrice Bergeron is probably going to be the consensus winner of the Selke Trophy this year. All right, time to get to the tough one, Tom. This one's a rough pick by both of us for different reasons. So for the Vezina Trophy, best goaltender. So Tom, you had like kind of a straight down the middle. You had trouble deciding who you were going to choose for this one. So you had picked two people. You had picked Washington Capitals goaltender Ilya Samsonov and Florida Panthers goaltender Sergei Bobrovsky. But that's not nearly as bad as my pick, because my pick for the Vezina this year was Carter Hart from Philadelphia. And oh man, where do I begin? Like, first of all, I probably wouldn't end up changing my pick like based on preseason. Like, I probably wouldn't have ended up changing that pick. I really thought highly of Carter Hart. There's no explanation of what's going on with him at the moment. This is, you know, one of the worst years by a goaltender since the beginning of the salary cap era. And he's going to have to find a way to really bounce back from this. This is a sophomore slump to a T. And hopefully he can figure it out. And hopefully that this isn't the end for such a talented goaltender. Tom, what do you think there?
Yeah, I think so. Carter Hart really, really disappointed a lot of people this year. You know, with he was the backbone of what was supposed to be a Flyers team that was contending for the Stanley Cup. My two picks, I didn't really like either one of them either. If I could go back, I probably wouldn't have picked either one of those guys. Samsonov, just because of COVID, in and out of the lineup. And if you're looking down in Florida right now, you know, you see Spencer Knight starting games and Bobrovsky not playing. So, yeah, it was just a bad prediction.
Yeah, bad prediction by both of us on that one. I mean, that's just not looking good. It looks like probably at least the person who I think is going to win this year, it's going to be Marc-Andre Fleury for Vegas, which if he does, kudos to him, because we were talking at this point last year of, is this the end for him in Vegas? Is he going to be a starter ever again? You know, there was a lot of questions surrounding Marc-Andre Fleury. Should I have a career renaissance like this and be in that conversation for the Vezina this year? That is fantastic for the former number 1 overall pick. Moving on next, the hits keep rolling for me and you a little bit. The Norris Trophy, the best defenseman. Your guess, Tom, was Alex Pietrangelo of the Vegas Golden Knights, which before their COVID break, could have been a possibility, admittedly. My pick for the Norris Trophy this year was Thomas Chabot for the Ottawa Senators, and I thought the Senators were going to be a little bit better this year and would kind of help Chabot's numbers, and it didn't happen. Unfortunately, it just wasn't the case for him. Probably not finishing top 3. He is a person that I'm going to say keep in mind for the next couple of years. He's a young defenseman who I think can do things. Tom, what do you think about your Alex Pietrangelo pick, though?
Well, like I said, just on the unfortunate part was COVID and what happened out there. But the guy who is in the conversation for it plays for my favorite team, Adam Fox. I thought he'd be good this year, but I didn't think he'd be this good.
I didn't think he'd be that good either. And what a pleasant surprise, especially for the Rangers. I mean, shades of Brian Leetch that is coming from Adam Fox at the moment. And he has been fantastic, over 45 points this year in a COVID shortened season. You know, what more can you ask for in your now consensus top defender, you know, probably eclipsing Jacob Trouba as, you know, the top defenseman in New York right now. Moving on next to the Maurice Richard Trophy, the highest goal scorer. Tom, your prediction was Alex Ovechkin, which was similar to mine, but I said it could go either way to Alex Ovechkin or Austin Matthews. And Austin Matthews looks like the person that is going to win it this year. Alex Ovechkin missed a couple games this year, which didn't help, but Austin Matthews was on a tear. I mean, if this is not a shortened season, do you think Austin Matthews would be in the conversation for 60 goals this year?
Quite possibly, yes. Quite possibly, yes. I mean, he's just under a goal per game. So, yeah, I could even think maybe around 65, possibly. I guess what gave him somewhat of an advantage was that you got a couple weaker teams in that Canadian division, and had they been playing a normal schedule, maybe not so much. But, yeah. Austin Matthews, solid prediction. You know, Ovechkin, he missed some games. They're probably holding him out for precautionary reasons right now. And, you know, eventually, you know, guys who dominate awards eventually just don't anymore. Sometimes, you know, guys overtake them. So, yeah.
No, that's true. I mean, for Alex Ovechkin, certainly not a down year, but not Ovechkin-like. So 44 games played, 24 goals. So not his normal goal total this year. I mean, you could blame, you know, the COVID shortened season and, you know, the COVID protocols that surrounded Washington Capitals, especially early on, that affects this. We'll see how it affects him next year in a potential full season. So that's going to be something that we revisit soon. Austin Matthews, though, probably the Richard Trophy winner this year. I don't see anybody catching him. Next was the Art Ross Trophy. We're in the home stretch here. The Art Ross Trophy. So, Tom, you had predicted Nathan MacKinnon, and my prediction for the Art Ross here was Austin Matthews. And the Art Ross, as we both know, is for the highest point getter. And I had mentioned in the predictions, almost like Connor McDavid heard me. I said, I think it's going to be Austin Matthews. This is the year Austin Matthews catches Connor McDavid. And Connor McDavid heard that and said, oh, really? And then proceeded to score 100 points in, 53 games. So, yeah, we were both a little bit off there. Would you have changed your pick from Nathan MacKinnon earlier on?
You know what? I don't think I would have, to tell you the truth. Colorado's just had terrible luck this year with COVID, with MacKinnon being hurt. And, one thing that might be going for McDavid is, like I said, there's some weaker teams in that Canadian division. Colorado's playing in a little bit of a rougher division. But, it is what it is. It happened. I'm still very much behind McKinnon. So we shall see what happens.
Heck yeah. I mean, beyond that.
In the future, obviously not this year because it can't happen now.
Well, yeah. That being said, McKinnon did not have a bad year by any means. 47 games played, 20 goals, 45 assists. He had 65 points in 47 games thus far. He's a plus 22 on the year. He's really done well. That's a fantastic game. That's over a point per game. By normal standards, we're talking about a potential 100-point season, maybe over 100-point season for Nathan McKinnon by the end of the year. There's a good possibility that he ends up with over 70 points at the end of the season once all is said and done. But, still on the rougher side. Connor McDavid just had an otherworldly year. My guess was Austin Matthews, and Austin Matthews is in that conversation, certainly. Actually, I just want to, because this might be one of the last times we're mentioning Austin Matthews at the moment. 50 games played thus far, 40 goals, 25 assists, 65 points. So same point total, actually, ironically, as Nathan McKinnon in this case. So our guesses currently have the same amount of points, which is actually kind of wild. But yeah, Connor McDavid just had an otherworldly year. And then finally on the trophy tracker here for the Hart Trophy, the MVP of the league. So Tom's prediction here was one of either Nathan McKinnon or Austin Matthews. And oh boy, here we go. So my pick for the Hart Trophy this year was a home run pick. And it was a bit of a bad home run pick, as it turns out, because my genius self said Jack Eichel. Oh my God. Oh, if the problems don't happen in Buffalo, Jack Eichel may actually be in that conversation. But I think looking back, I probably would have ended up changing that for an easier pick. I probably would have been yeah, let's go Connor McDavid. When is it not going to be Connor McDavid? And it seems like Connor McDavid is probably going to be the Hart Trophy winner this year. It really does seem that way. Tom, what do you think of your two picks? I mean, obviously, I think McKinnon and Matthews will be in the conversation for the Hart.
Well, mine had to do with going deep in the playoffs, as I still believe that Colorado and Toronto will go deep, and I don't think Edmonton will go as deep. But just with the season McDavid had, I mean, at this point, they'll be in the conversation, but I don't think either one of them are going to win it.
Yeah. And yeah, what else can be said about Connor McDavid? He is probably that Hart Trophy winner as well. Best predictions on your part was probably the Lady Byng Trophy. I mean, pretty spot on with Austin Matthews there. I think he is probably that Lady Byng winner. Some rough choices by us were the Vezina and Norris Trophy, because we both were pretty off on that one. And then, for my bad prediction was, the Vezina because of Carter Hart and the Hart Trophy because of Jack Eichel. My best prediction, though, was the Calder Trophy because of Kirill Kaprizov, though. And I think I'm going to be dead on the money there. Lastly, we're going to get into some bold predictions that we had made outside of trophy tracking and who was going to make the playoffs. So, Tom, I'm just going to read verbatim on what some of your bold predictions were. I'm going to give your bold predictions from the West and from the East. So this might, be a little bit of a mouthful, and then I'll let you talk about it. Talk about some of the decisions that you made here. So some bold predictions from the West that you had were San Jose was going to make the playoffs, and that Jonathan Taves was potentially going to get traded. But as we found out a couple weeks later, he did not play at all. Didn't even play. And then Vancouver was going to surprise a lot of people and also be towards the top of that playoff bracket. Not for nothing. Without COVID, could happen. If they don't have that COVID stop, we could be talking about Vancouver in the playoffs right now. But, that's in the past at the moment. In the East, you had the New York Rangers passing the Philadelphia Flyers for the final playoff spot on the last day of the season. That Capo Caco was finally going to become the power forward that he was expected to be. and that Lafreniere was going to be good, but lose the Calder to Tim Stützle of Ottawa. While the Senators won't make the playoffs, they'll certainly make great strides. And Brady Tkachuk was going to be a part of that, resurgence, for the Senators to play some respectable hockey. And then finally, Lou Lamoriello, for no reason, was going to fire Barry Trotz just because it's Lou Lamoriello. Tom, talk about some of these picks.
Okay, well, I'm not going to go to the San Jose one anymore. I went into that above. Jonathan Taves, well, he didn't play, so he can't get traded. There are a lot of Blackhawks fans saying that had he played, they probably would have made the playoffs, and I'm inclined to agree with him. He really played well in the bubble last year against Edmonton, so we don't know where Jonathan Taves is right now. We don't know what's going to happen with him, so I'm going to leave Jonathan Taves alone. Vancouver did surprise a lot of people, but they surprised him in the wrong way. They just didn't have a good year. COVID held them up, and even before COVID, they were just having a lot of problems even beforehand. But I'm telling you what, the Vancouver Canucks are not done yet. They're not done. They'll be back. So you know what? I just write off this year. Discount this year with Vancouver. As far as the East are concerned, the Rangers were in contention most of the year. Kakko showed flashes of a player that he could be. I think he needs to get a little more ice time, but yeah, towards the end, towards the end of the season, he really started coming on, and I really think you're going to see that 20 to 25 goal Kakko next year. I really do think you're gonna see that. Stützle might not be in the Calder conversation, but I mean, nobody thought Kaprizov was going to come from where he came from. Decent year for him. Ottawa didn't have the year I thought. I thought they'd be a lot more respectable. But wow, are they bad? They're really, really bad. As far as the Islanders are concerned, the Islanders were a decent team most of the year, but they've been trending downward lately. And if they don't get out of the first round this year, or if that first round is short, don't be surprised if Barry Trotz if Lou Lamoriello may fire Barry Trotz after that. Don't be surprised. Lou Lamoriello is known for doing stuff like that. How many years did the Devils have good teams that would finish in first and lose in the first round, and he fire guys like Jacques Lemaire and Robbie Ftorek and so on and so forth? So, I mean, that could still happen. It's just not going to happen right now. That's just about it for me.
Yeah. So I had some really, really wild and bold predictions. So I'll start off with my West bold predictions that I had. So these were some pretty bold takes. So first, Anaheim was going to be in the playoff hunt until the last day of the regular season on the back of Vezina finalist and Jennings Trophy winner John Gibson, who I also guess was going to have a fully healthy, shortened season. And for the most part, he did. He really didn't get injured, but he also didn't play that insanely well. The second bold prediction, I was really, really happy about this. So my second bold prediction was that the Minnesota Wild will also hang around playoff contention for the majority of the season, thanks to leading scorers Kevin Fiala and Calder Trophy finalist Kirill Kaprizov. I was dead on the money on that one. Kevin Fiala, another 40-point season so far for him. 20 goals also for him. And Kirill Kaprizov, I mean, what more can be said that hasn't been said about him? I mean, he has been the reason why Minnesota has actually been an exciting team to watch. They've been one of the only reasons why people have been tuning in to watch them. My last one for the West was Arizona will launch a fire sale well before the trade deadline, dumping the likes of Oliver Ekman-Larsson for a decent haul and a rapidly declining Phil Kessel for peanuts. Both didn't happen. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is still with Arizona, and Phil Kessel is also still with Arizona. Quick little thing to note here. Phil Kessel also just got his 900th point in the NHL, so congrats to him. Also probably one of the funniest pictures of all time because people are photoshopping the hockey puck for a hot dog at the moment. So way to go, hockey fans. Lastly, my East predictions. I had a ton of East predictions, and by God, not a lot of them are right. Anyway, so I went for some home runs again. The Devils will be playoff contenders for the majority of the season, but fall short because of a strong Atlantic division. Now, I had said that because, this was before the division realignment, and they were really good at the beginning of the season and then took a break from COVID and just were never the same team again. Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes will finally show everyone why they were drafted number one overall in 2017 and 2019, respectively, and both eclipse 60 points, and Nikita Gusev would eclipse that number as well. And Good God, I was really wrong on Gusev's part because he did not gel with this team. Nico Hischier had a really rough break. He had an injury-shortened season, but looked really, really good when healthy. Jack Hughes made some significant strides this year, and he's going to be finding the back of the net next year, but he still couldn't quite find the back of the net, but way, way better than last year. And it's going to be a matter of time until he starts putting up some serious numbers in the NHL. Another bold prediction was Ottawa would be hovering around playoff contention for the majority of the year and will, show teams why they're one of the most exciting teams in the next few years to watch. And it was going to be because of Norris Trophy finalist Thomas Chabot. I was wrong again, and nothing more to say there. Alexander Ovechkin will continue his quest for Gretzky's goal record and score like a man possessed, quote unquote, in a shortened season. He'll certainly pass 40 goals despite a shortened season. No, he didn't, because again, I'm dumb. And why do I keep saying things like this? Finally, and this one's for Tom, the Rangers will sport not one, but two Calder Trophy finalists. One was going to be Igor Shesterkin, and the other one was going to be K'Andre Miller. And though both had great years, they're probably not Calder finalists this year. But it kind of sucks to say because I really liked how both of them played this year overall. But, what I take out of this, I'm at least happy with my Calder prediction. But that being said, what do you guys think about all of our predictions? What do you think your preseason predictions were? Talk to us down below and make sure you join the conversation with us at i80sports.com as per usual. You can find all of our NHL content there. You can also find the rest of the NFL, MLS, college football, and other sports content there as well. Hit up the shop while you're there as well. Get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. And make sure you hit us up on Twitter at i80_sports NHL. The road to 1,000 is on, and we want you to hop on. We want you to join us. So please make sure that you do. And since you're on YouTube right now, make sure that you say hello down below. And if you're not subscribed already, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button already. Smash that subscribe button. Any last words before we leave?
No, let's just enjoy this last week of makeup games. And, looks like the playoffs are pretty set right now, but just enjoy the last week of the games. In a way, it's weird being a Ranger fan right now. My team season is over, and there's still a week of games left in the regular season. But it's been a weird year in general.
It's been a weird year in general, but we've been here to track it all the way through, and we're going to continue doing that all the way through to the Stanley Cup Final and beyond. So make sure you stick around here for all of the happenings in the playoffs and the offseason and the regular season, as you've been doing all season long. You got to make sure you join us here at i80 Sports, which this has been another one of those episodes of NHL on i80 Sports. I'm Brian. He's been Tom. Thanks for joining us today.